You have set up Papyrus, you have added your, you have imported your template project, you have added it to a Git repository. Now we can start actually working on the assignments. And I'll start with quickly explaining what's up here in Eclipse and Papyrus, and then we go to more the detailed diagrams and the models. So what you see here in Eclipse are so-called views. So these little windows here are views that show different things in the system, basically. And here, for example, you have the Project Explorer, which shows, well, all the projects and the files in there. It actually doesn't show all the files. It usually just shows the stuff that is relevant. In this case, for example, for Papyrus. Here you have the Model Explorer, which shows your model once I have opened something. And then here you have the Properties view, which we will use quite a lot. And up here, once I open the model, will actually do the work. So if I open this, you see the model. Up here in the right corner, you have something that is called perspectives. That's basically presets for Eclipse that you can decide. For example, the Papyrus guys did their own perspective that shows all the views that are important for Papyrus modeling. Another one is, for example, Java. If you open this one, you'll see different windows. For example, you see problems, Java doc, and so on. This one you will probably use once you do the development from week 5 on. Then you also have state chart modeling, state chart simulation, which you will use for the Yakindu stuff. But you see in all of these views, I'm actually, my model is still open and so on. So they just show different windows, basically. So for now, I go back to the Papyrus view. And I already opened the model. I just double click on it. And you typically get this view. And it shows you here on the right side, it shows you which diagrams you have and so on, but it's actually all not that important. What's interesting is down here in the Model Explorer. So you can open this, all of it, and you will see that there are different elements here. These are packages. So later on when we do code generation, actually make sure that your code is generated into sc.chalmers.csv and so on. So this is important that you don't change it. If I, for example, move this element up here, it would get a completely different name later on in the code generation. So make sure everything is in this last package. These little boxes here are classes, these are interfaces. Here we have a data type, but if you right click on here, you can actually go to new child and you can create basically whatever UML allows you to. So everything from an activity, classes, collaborations to whatever use cases. So you can create stuff down here. Sometimes that's quite practical. Sometimes it's quite annoying. For example, if you want to have an association between two classes, that's not easy at all to do here. So if I open this, you actually see these are arrows, and you somehow have to define in your properties view how they work, which is not very nice. So this is where we have diagrams, and here I created a class diagram. I can just double click on it, and you actually see the graphical view of it. And here maybe it's important to distinguish what a model and what a diagram is. So down here you have the entire model, whereas up here you only have one diagram, and a diagram is basically a view onto the model, so it doesn't have to show everything. In this case, for example, you don't see all the packages. I could take them and draw them in here, and then you would see them. But that's not necessary. So basically, a diagram shows a part of the model, and I could create another class diagram here. If I go to new diagram, class diagram, I can give it whatever name I want, and then it's empty. So I can drag classes in here. I can create new classes here with a different name. So you even can have multiple diagrams of the same type that show a different part of the system. That's important to understand, partly because it means that if I delete something from the diagram, this can mean two different things. Either it can mean that I delete it from the diagram only, or that I actually delete it from the model. And the default is if I just press the delete button, it will actually remove it from the model. So if you look down here and now I press delete, it will actually disappear. So this is very important because, for example, this class here I'm using in the other diagram as well. So now I don't want to delete this from the model, I just want to get rid of it in the diagram. So I actually need to right click on it and say delete from diagram. But as you see here, there's also a shortcut for it. And now I've done that, and you see that the class is still here. I haven't deleted it completely. That's good for now, so I get rid of this diagram again. I don't want it. And of course, you can create different folders here. You can create different diagrams and so on. I would recommend that everything that you have in your class diagram that you will later use for code generation, you should keep in this folder. But other than that, you can create folders as you want. So you can maybe up here create a different package where you store all your stuff for the use case diagram. And important is that most of the changes you actually make down here in the properties view. So here you can change the name. You can say this is my use case package. And then in here I can create a use case diagram and actually draw everything up here. So I can say I want to have a couple of use cases. I want to have an actor. And the actor should somehow use these things. Good. And then by default, everything in a diagram is created in the same package. So if I would move the diagram to the top level here, everything would get created in the top level. But of course, you can move stuff around as you want. So I can move this, and it doesn't affect the diagram. It will just internally relink it. Good. I won't go too much into this, so I just delete this again. And maybe have a couple of words regarding the class diagram. So the class diagram already has some content, as I said, and this is related to the interface description that we have prescribed. And the reason for this is simply that we will use this later on when you implement your system. We will use this to test your system, to test part of your system. So important is that you don't change this structure here. So the interfaces and the implementing classes, they should be there, and also this data type. And all of the methods that are here, you have to implement later on, and you are not allowed to change them. If you change them, it means the testing won't work, which will give you a worse grade, or in the worst case, fail you. But you are allowed to add stuff to the interface. So it's not a problem to say that we need a new operation for whatever check-in, which is not here right now. So you're allowed to do that, no problem. You're also allowed to add new methods that do similar things. So for example, maybe you decide that you should have a different method to get all the free rooms. So you decide to add a new one with a different signature. It's fine as long as you don't touch the things that are there. The only exception is if we come up with a new assignment that says, okay, now, for example, the confirm booking method is changing because the customer has changed his or her mind. But for now, it's important that you all leave it as it is. Good. I think that's basically all that I will discuss here. Important maybe, now I've made changes, so maybe I want to commit the whole thing again. And this should simply work as before. If I say right-click team commit, then again the staging view will come up, and I can actually decide, okay, here you see the UML file has changed, this is where my model is in, and the notation file has changed, this is where the diagram information is in, and I would like to commit this, so I say stage it, and I say whatever, new check-in operation, and commit. And that's it for this tutorial.